Hello and welcome to my channel, From Profession to Passion, with me, Vicky Mittman. The purpose of this channel is to inform and inspire professionals to live their careers on their terms. Whilst the traditional route in many professions may work well for some, it isn't for everyone, and there are different ways of doing things. On this channel, I'll be sharing my own story of how I combined my profession in law with my passion for coaching and mentoring, and I'll be interviewing other professionals who've developed their own side hustles, changed career directions altogether, or found some other way to involve their passions in their professional lives. I am delighted today to be joined by Iain Holloway-McLean of IHM Coaching. Iain's someone I know through the coaching space now, and I've got to know him more over the last few weeks because we've done a summit together recently. And I know Iain, like me, is passionate all things coaching and making that positive change in people's life. But that's not where it all started for Iain, and he's got a really interesting journey from nursing through a corporate career and into coaching, which I'd love to hear more about. So Iain, are you happy to share a bit of your journey with us?
Absolutely, Vicky. Thank you so much for the introduction. And yes, it's a strange journey sometimes when people say, well, where are you now and where have you come from? And what have been the triggers that have led you down that pathway? And I suppose my answer to that is that there is always what you could call a golden thread that runs through everything. And that golden thread for me is very much my values and my aspirations. And that's something that I very much focus on now in my coaching career. But if I take you back to 1988, when I first joined the NHS and started my nursing career, the reasons why I went down that pathway was that my core values are very much related to helping people, nurturing, loyalty, trust. And those elements were very much embedded in that nursing philosophy. I was very fortunate as well that in the old days, so to speak, the training for nursing was very much practice-based. You were on the wards, you were caring for people, you were very much getting involved. I think more recently it's become slightly more academic in relation to its qualifications and degree and a lot more classroom-based pieces. But I was very fortunate that nurse training very much met my capabilities as well. I'm not very much an academic. I've never been very, very good at the highly educational academic degree type of concepts. I've been very much somebody who's been able to go in, learn through practice. And the nursing career for me was something that really spoke to where I wanted to be, how I wanted to be, and how I would like other people to be. And I'm also very much, and this is seen throughout my career, results-based. And there's nothing more results-based, frankly, than in nursing, where you are there on a ward, you're caring for somebody, and you automatically see the impact that you have on somebody else, that positive influence. And that positive influence actually doesn't always mean a positive influence to good health or well-being. I actually, in my latter days of nursing, very much specialized in HIV and palliative care. And a lot of that, therefore, was a focus on ensuring that the good outcome was potentially a dignified death. And those elements still have a positive influence on my life today. Knowing how you can interact with an individual, what you can do, how you can help others, the things that you can say, sometimes the things that you don't say. And I think this automatically takes us right into the realms of coaching in relating that art of listening, hearing what the person's maybe saying, also hearing what they're not saying. And some of my experiences in nursing actually were a really good bedrock for my corporate career as well. Very much in relation to team resilience and team activity. When I was in nursing, I was very fortunate that I progressed up through the levels, and I was a senior charge nurse when I left nursing and then went into pharmaceutical industry. But during that time period and managing large teams, you start to understand the core attributes of each individual within your team and the difference that each person plays. And I remember an example, and if I'm going a little bit off piece, then just let me know. But I remember an example where we would do a ward round, we would go through to the different patients, we would ask them about their pain control. And there was one lady who I remember very, very clearly, and this is 30, 40 years ago, or 30 years ago, and that they would say, no, I've got no pain. And then half an hour later, one of my auxiliary nurses came up to me and said, this patient's in pain. And it was like very confusing because we'd literally just left her room. We just asked her what the issues were. And we started to actually sit down, and I took some time out, sat down with the patient, listened to her and asked her. And I actually inquired, when I asked you about pain, you said no. But when one of my team members asked you, you said yes. And she said, but Iain, when I tell you you've got pain, you give me an injection and I hate needles.
Right.
And whilst she knew that there was that, I would resolve the pain, it was the act that she knew if she told me, then that would create a fear in her. But if she told somebody else, they didn't have the power or the control to give her an injection. So therefore it was an easier route to be able to express what she wanted. And that in two ways opens up the art of conversation, in the fact that as coaches, we need to start to explore different ways of listening and also different approaches to encourage people to say what they truly want. But it's also to look at how important that what would be a junior member of my team, what their importance was in the bigger picture. And that, I think, hopefully served me well in my corporate career. And certainly that was my focus when I joined in the pharmaceuticals, to look at all my team members, irrespective of their seniority, to see how we can get the best out of them and what we can learn from those individuals as well. Because that's the other thing. I think as we progress in any career, we lose some of that insight that maybe we had, that aspirational insight that we had when we first started. So that's how I started off. If that helps, anyone in relation to understanding where you start off, how do you progress through, and what are the triggers that help you then to make those progressions. And don't get me wrong, nursing was a fantastic experience. So was my pharmaceutical industry. I was in the pharmaceutical industry for maybe 25 years. But it was still had that golden thread of caring, nurturing, helping others. And the corporate side of things actually was a release, because I think from an emotional and mental well-being piece, certainly when I was at the latter stages of my nursing career, the emotional strain and stresses were incredibly high. And I think you sometimes have to look at yourself and be mindful and care for yourself, looking at, okay, what are you putting yourself into? Is that going to be causing you harm as an individual? And what can you do that removes you from that initial harm, but still ignites that passion, still keeps you getting up in the morning, still keeps you motivated? And that's why now I'm in the coaching business, because I have conversations with my clients. I see how they can, now we're on Zoom, and hopefully we'll get back to more face-to-face work, but you see when someone starts to talk about their passion, or they start to talk about something at work that actually ignites their interest, their whole body posture changes. They lighten up, they become more animated, they start to smile. And as coaches, we have that privilege of seeing that, and then being able to nurture and build on it, and maybe delve deeper to say, okay, well, how can we replicate that feeling somewhere else? Bringing ourselves back to those core values and aspirations.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the things you said really resonated with me in my journey. So I think people watching this will feel similar, even from very different backgrounds with different professional careers. But I think there's that real focus on your values, which you and I both talked about at the summit a few weeks back. And, you know, we both feel that's like a really important starting point, because those values, they were our values when we were in our professional careers, both, you know, all the way through that. And you know, I'm still a practicing lawyer, but I considered that when I was in private practice only as a lawyer, as much as I do now as a lawyer and a coach. And also just Vicky the person and Iain the person, those values are so important. And if those values, you know, like you've said about nurturing and care and helping someone to live in a positive way, that's all really important, whichever career you be in. And I don't think anything would change that. But also I was interested when you were talking about, I guess the best word for it is your skill set, you know, in terms of your natural intuition about how to help someone. That's obviously fundamental for nursing as much as it is for coaching, but it's nice that you can, you know, those skills that you honed in your professional life are still as important and valuable in your coaching career now going forward. And I think that's lovely.
Yeah, and I think, again, for our audience, you know, no skill set is more important or better than another skill set. So, you know, if your values don't quite, you know, match up with my core values, that doesn't make you you know, it's just a different person. It doesn't make you better or worse. So I think it's very much the message here is to look at what your core skill sets are. Look at what your values are, and whatever they may be, whether it's financial security or nurturing or loyalty, you know, look at what they are and how can they positively influence the next steps in your career journey, in your life journey, making sure that actually the two are also aligned. Because, you know, so many times you hear of people that are very much satisfied in their personal environment, but not satisfied in their work environment or their corporate environment, etc., or vice versa.
Yeah.
And it's then, you know, encouraging people to say, okay, well, why is that? What is it that is in your, you know, home life that makes you feel comfortable and satisfied, whilst at work you're stressed and everything? And it's not just about the fact that you're not working. It's more deeper than that.
Yeah.
It is understanding, okay, well, maybe your employer and their actions don't match your values.
Yeah.
Maybe there is a conflict in relation to what your company stands for or what your role stands for versus what is inherently inbred into your values, those core drivers inside you. And if that's the case, it's then saying, okay, how can we look at readdressing that? Now, that doesn't mean to say that we can, you know, we've got a magic wand. We say, okay, give up your job and off you go. That's not possible, certainly in today's environment, cost of living and everything else. But it's now looking to say, okay, well, are there elements within that organization that do inspire and do connect to your values? Are there pieces of your role that actually, you know, they were there when you started, so there must have been something that attracted you to that job. It wouldn't have just been the paycheck. Probably not. So can we get back to that? How have we done? At the recent summit, one of my slides was the long grass, and it's a metaphor that I use about the fact, you know, has the long grass grown up around you and your career? And, you know, sometimes we hide behind that long grass because, you know, we don't want people to see us. It would feel safe, absolutely. But other times our role and our job has just evolved, and it's evolved through positive thought processes, positive, you know, potential promotions, etc., those type of things, which have all been good at the time. But suddenly you wake up and you realize that the distance between where you are now and where you started is quite huge. And it's now trying to then map back to that and say, okay, what was it that first inspired you to go and work for that company or take on that role? And how can we reignite that passion?
That spark. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's
and just the alignment. I think it's one of my coaching clients described it to me that she felt just a little bit out of sync, not completely, but a little bit out of sync. And so it's almost like when you watch a program and you've paused it and you start it again, but the the words you're hearing don't quite match up with the facial features and the characters moving on screen. And she said, it's not the end of the world, but it's irritating, and there's something that just doesn't feel right. And I thought that was quite a good way of explaining it, actually. Like just being even a little bit out of alignment can feel quite uncomfortable, and it can bother you, even if it's not like broken the end of the world, you know, we can't carry on. It's just not feeling aligned. And actually, if we do understand those core values and our core drivers and why we went to that role in the first place, then actually it's quite easy to see, okay, so there are probably, you know, 50, 60, 70% of what we're doing we are happy with, but there's 30% we're not happy with. And how can we positively change what we're doing? What conversations do we need to have? What kind of attitude do we need to bring to those tasks that we're not enjoying, so that hopefully they can have a better impact and we can have a better impact in our work? And there are so many ways, but often when I speak to someone for the first time and they say, I'm just stuck and I need to change, something needs to change. But often that's something, it's not a new job or a new career necessarily, or a new partner. It could be any of those things, but often it's actually a bit smaller, but that one issue has become a real thorn in their side, and actually slowly removing that, and they realize everything else is okay, it is actually really powerful for them.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes it's just gaining that additional insight of understanding, okay, what is out of sync, what is misaligned, you know, and just being able to recognize that actually you are still in control. And I think control is something that is very important to all of us. And that doesn't mean that you need to be controlling. But I think you have to have that sense that you have control over what you're doing. And even just understanding that maybe you're in a job that isn't satisfying and everything else, but you understand the reasons why in relation to it's paying the mortgage and everything else. And, you know, you can start to focus on other areas of development that, you know, maybe don't change, you know, the magic wand and instantly everything's better. But if you start through coaching to devise a longer term plan to say, okay, where would you like to be? Where would you like to be? And does that still match your previous values and aspirations, and get that thread running all the way through? Then suddenly the individual that you're coaching can see where they are today, where they want to be in the future, and also the pathway that can take them there. And now they have control
available to get there.
Exactly. And that control element is now back firmly in their hands. And sometimes that's all that's needed. You know, you haven't actually changed anything, but what you have done is you've changed their insights into what they're seeing.
Absolutely. And that's something, when I had some career coaching as I was leaving my law firm before I started up as a consultant, and I started my coaching business, I remember feeling really unsteady about the move, because there is this assumption that if you're in this corporate environment that you're protected somehow, and you know, the firm will look after you, and you have these, you know, the great benefits of being paid the same amount every month, and the, you know, the health insurance possibly, or the you know, the corporate gym membership, and you have the marketing done for you, and you have this structure and this way forward, this path through the firm, you know, from trainee solicitor, associate, senior associate, partner, and there's this natural progression rate. And stepping out of that felt really uncomfortable, because that's how I'd been trained from the age of 24 when I joined the law firm. That's what I assumed would happen to me, as it happened to every other lawyer in that firm. And I just thought that's the only way. So I felt a bit unsteady and uncertain moving out, but I also felt stronger than I'd ever felt before, because some of my values were around freedom and flexibility, which was not an option in a corporate structure where there was really only that way to go. And they weren't saying, you know, but there are several other options you could have. You don't need to go down this route, but you can progress and get more money and be more successful in a different direction, because that wasn't an option. So I think my drivers around my core values became stronger. And even though I felt unsteady, because I had those core values and I knew what they were and why they were important, it was easier to make decisions that were sensible for me and in alignment with those, not just, you know, handing in my notice one day and never looking back. It was a structured approach. But you know, now I don't think I'm even employable anymore, if I'm honest about it, because this freedom and flexibility that I have now is totally different, and it works really well for me. And I think it makes me a better lawyer and a better coach, because I'm living in alignment with what's really important.
Well, you're you, aren't you?
And
that's the crucial element here. You're now being able to interact with others as Vicky, not as the corporate logo that might be behind you, or the company. Because I mean, I know we're focusing on the large corporates, but there may be people listening that are working for smaller companies or in a shop or in retail or whatever. But it's being able to express yourself as yourself, and suddenly, you know, you are aligned to your values, you are aligned to your core drivers, and ultimately then, because you believe in yourself and you believe in what you're saying, you're giving a far better service to that individual that you're interacting with, because you believe in it. You know, there is no script that you're having to follow and everything else. But I agree, you sometimes you're corporately conditioned. I was with one company for over 20 years, and there was a grieving process when I left, because it was almost like, you know, everything had been done for me. And now suddenly I was out by myself, and I was, you know, I sometimes use the analogy of, you know, almost becoming 18 years old and leaving home. It was that type of feeling. Excitement, because wow, there's a big world out there for me. And that was really, really exciting, but also really scary. You know, let's not sugarcoat this. It is a scary thing. And also suddenly you find that you're alone. But I think the one thing I will give everybody is you're not alone. If you decide that you want to change your career pathway, or you want to go it alone, you've got a venture, then start believing in your venture, look into it, research it, make sure it aligns with your passions and your values and your drivers. And although you might be starting off as a one person, either sole trader or company or whatever it might be, there are lots of other people out there that are absolutely willing to share their stories, willing to help you in what you're doing. You know, I've got a list of stupid questions, so to speak. And, you know, I ask them on the forums, on social media, and they're not stupid, because they're the questions that somebody else asked, you know, 2 weeks ago, 2 years ago, whatever. We're all continuously learning. And I think that's the fabulous bit here. We're learning, we're developing, we're sharing. And, you know, it hopefully this conversation, when somebody's listening to it, will stimulate them to think, actually, I might be able to do something different, or I need to go and have that conversation with my manager because I'd like to focus on this area. I'm very passionate about mental well-being. I'm a mental health first aider. And when I was in corporate, I was involved in those elements. But again, you know, if that's an opportunity, and if that's something that, you know, connects with some of our audience, then are there mental health first aiders in your company? Could you speak to your manager? Could you potentially, you know, become somebody who is connected to that? Are they able to get you on a course, etc., to learn more? Then you're still in your same role, you're still in your same job, but you're bringing some of your values into that workspace, that then makes the humdrum, the mundaneness of maybe what you're doing more bearable.
Absolutely. And that's why I do these videos with people like you, Iain, who have done it and who can say, actually, we're not alone. We've got this fantastic supportive community of other people who are doing it too. Iain, you and I met through the coaching crowd, which is a group of coaches set up by two lovely ladies, Jo and Zoe. And they formed a whole community, which I never knew was out there. And then once I found them, I thought, these are my people. These are people who are doing what I'm doing. And I felt tremendous that I've now got a much bigger community than I ever had before. Just as a lawyer, I mean, I had other lawyers in my network and clients and people that would refer to me, but as a coach, it feels like I've got a load of people who are doing exactly what I'm doing, and we can reach out and have these conversations, you know, quite naturally, which is wonderful. So you're quite right, you're not alone in that if people would decide to do something a bit different. But what would you say, you know, were there any resources, any podcasts or books or materials that you read that were particularly you know, important to you in your journey that you would recommend anyone who is, you know, thinking about a change? What would you recommend to them?
It's a difficult one, actually, because I'm, as I mentioned earlier on, I'm not very academic. I find it difficult to sit down and read things, and hopefully there are people out there that have the same problems that I do. But so there are certain things. All I would give advice to people is find the media type that suits you. Now, whether that's podcasts, whether that's reading a book, whether that's watching a film, and then try and ensure that you focus your values and your thoughts, and making sure that what you're viewing, listening to, reading reflects what you want to do. Now, there are some great books out there, and there are hundreds of self-help type books, etc. One actual book that I did find, which was very easy read, was the Art of Possibility. And that's, I think it's Rosamund, Zander, Rosalind and Ben Zander, and they've got a little package in the passage in that bit which they talk about in their corporate experience about rule 6, and rule number 6, and then there's a whole spiel about that. And to cut a long story short, rule number 6 is basically don't take yourself so seriously. And that is a crucial piece of advice that I learned later in my career. I must admit, I did take myself far too seriously in my younger years, and I would give people advice: don't take yourself too seriously, be yourself, relax, things will happen for a reason. Other books that have inspired me, Start With Why, Simon Sinek.
That's my favorite on this series, actually. I think because it is so important. You're starting with why you do what you do, which is the values piece. And if you know that why, you will, no matter what, attract people who have got that similar view.
Absolutely. And that's available on Audible type of things as well. So if you're not somebody who can sit down, or you do long car journeys, just download it and play it in the car. Another great book, Vicky, is one that is actually released through the Samaritans, and it's written by Kate Columbus, and it's called How to Listen. And that's a really insightful book. It not only talks about the work the Samaritans do, but also the power of listening and the art of listening. And there are plenty of other books that talk about the I suppose the structure of listening, the levels of listening, etc. But Kate Columbus's book is a nice, easy read. And that's through, if you go onto the Samaritans website, I think you can get it through their bookshop, so to speak, but that's good. Otherwise, other books that have really inspired me, Bob Mortimer and Away, his biography. And that, I love that
autobiographies is an inspiration. That's a great idea.
Exactly, because if you find somebody that you connect to and actually you like, if they've got an autobiography, go out and read it. Because they will share some of their thoughts and feelings, and those thoughts and feelings may well resonate with you. Now, it may not tell you what to do, but it makes you feel connected. It inspires you to go, hey, well, this guy's been successful, or this person's been successful, and they've suffered from certain experiences, and I've suffered from those same ones. It just gives you connectivity, and I think that's also sometimes really important when either you're in a position where you're not so happy, or you're embarking on a new journey and you just want that level of confidence. Films wise, my best film is a film called The Way, with Martin Sheen. It's a story about the journey, walking journey between the Camino de Santiago. I'd really recommend that film. It probably doesn't give you any insights into career progression or anything else, but it really does give you an insight into people's personality, the different characterizations, the values of certain people, the importance of those values. And for me, because values are firmly embedded into my DNA, that film always resonates with me. That's my go-to film if I need a little bit of an uplift. It's not exactly always happy, but it's a great film.
Oh, good. Well, and it's nice to know that, because if it's values-based, it will probably suit me too.
Yes.
Super. Well, thank you. That's fantastic. And do you have any last words of wisdom? Anything that you wish you'd known when you were 25, or anything you'd say now to someone who's looking at that kind of pivot in their career? What would you say to them?
I'm always cautious when I say this, because I'm always wary that, I don't have any regrets in anything that I've done. And yes, there could have been things that could have been done differently, but trust in your instinct. That's the key piece. Trust your gut. Go, if something doesn't feel right, listen to that and don't go down that pathway. There will always be things that happen in your career, in your life, that we don't understand. I am a firm believer though, and maybe this is because I've got experience of my years and everything else, but things happen for a reason. Not sure what that reason is. If I quickly take you back, my nursing career wasn't a smooth pathway. I failed my exams right at the beginning. I had to become an auxiliary nurse. I had to go right down to the basic levels. But in that nursing career, very quickly, I went through every single grade there was, up to a senior charge nurse.
Yeah.
Now, at the time I failed my exams, I said, what's going on? I'm a great nurse. This is not fair. That took me away from a pathway where I was going to go into A&E, critical care, the big sirens and lights and everything else, took me back to focusing on the people, focusing on the patient, really connecting me back to my values. That was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
That made me be part of a team at every single level. So when I was the team lead, I knew precisely, or not precisely, but I knew potentially how that other team member at that lower grade was feeling, what their interactions were. Yeah. Things always happen for a reason. Go with your gut, go with your instinct, and be flexible.
Fantastic advice. I love that. And I think the idea that actually, it wasn't smooth sailing in your nursing, but it was there for a reason. And actually going back right to the beginning and having those team experiences has made you who you are in your corporate career for 30 years and who you are in your coaching now. And that focus on people and connections within people in a team, that's fundamental, which you might never have quite arrived at in the same way had you gone straight into the critical care nursing. So that's fantastic. Like you say, it happens for a reason.
It does indeed, yes.
Super. Well, Iain, that's been really, really great to talk to you today, and thank you for sharing your insights. If people want to get in touch with you, obviously I'll link you in on LinkedIn, but is there any better way to get in touch with you, through a website or email? Or
LinkedIn is the best approach for me. I do have a Facebook page which is now developing, but LinkedIn is very much my method of communication. By all means, anyone connect up with me, send me a message. More than happy to have a chat. If there's anything that we can do, if you want to understand more about my journey, there's a couple of podcasts that I've got as well that have gone out previously to this one. There's the summit presentation as well that explains a bit more about my journey. But yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn, connect, and we'll have a chat.
Super. Well, thanks again, Iain, for joining me. It's been a real pleasure.
No, it's fantastic. Thank you very much, Vicky.
Thank you for watching this video, and I hope it's provided some food for thought. If you've enjoyed it, please subscribe below and feel free to like or comment. I'd love to know what you think. If you're interested in hearing more about this, please join my Facebook community, From Profession to Passion with Vicky Mittman. I'll see you next time.